As the name implies, astral parasites are leeches that latch onto your energy body and feed on your energies. Now, two things are involved here. Either the astral parasite feeds on your raw life energy, or the parasite feeds on lower vibration found within you, which attracted the parasite in question in the first place. Now, what are astral parasites? These are energy thought forms or energy forms or entities that draw their nourishment from you, whether to your knowledge or not, or whether to your permission or not. Now, the universe as we know it is teeming with abundant life. But when it comes to life enhancing associations, we come to the realization that not all life forms or energy forms are conducive for our essence. Even in our day-to-day life activities, there are bacteria and viruses and fungus that cause a number of uncomfortable experiences with our health. But these organisms are part of life and nature all the same. Just as there are physical microscopic organisms that causes illnesses, so are there astral or unseen life forms beyond microscopic perception that also have considerable effect on human life. And this is why we are treating the topic on astral parasites. We are in the year 2022, and some of you here have within your yearly forecast to develop resistance to astral parasitic interferences. So those of you of the Temple of Shekinah as well as the priestesses of Yemoja have this as your project for this year. Now, the existence of astral parasites are not so much the issue as the how and the why these parasites become present in our aura. So let's go through a few hows and whys astral parasites may latch onto us, okay? Number one, funerals. There are two primary forces of change in our multiverse, namely the forces of growth and the forces of decay. You've already learned this. These two forces you have already studied are perpetually interlinked in a cycle of 8, which is infinity. So funerals, in this case, which embodies the transitional energy of decay, meaning the ending of physical existence of a life form, has within its spaces a horde of energies that essentially support and facilitate decay. Decay, in this case, which is the reversal of the power of growth into its elementary components. So these energies that facilitate the degeneration, when latched onto your aura, can cause a reversal of your life energies that are steadily growing in terms of relationships, business, personal luck and favor, health, etc. These astral parasites, because they support and promote decay, will feed and reverse all things concerning growth to create more energies of decay. This doesn't mean we stop going to funeral grounds. It is just something to be aware of and prepare for, not necessarily something to be afraid of. In our universe, there are always energies that support and promote every circumstance. So at funeral grounds, if a funeral attendant fails to put necessary protective measures in place before, during, and after visiting the funeral grounds, then such a funeral attendant will be carrying energies that essentially run counter to or opposite to growth and progress. For those energies of decay are only present at funerals to support the space of death, which is really energies of life moving in an opposite direction to growth and generation. Example will be And this is an example. Planting a seed will invoke energies of life, whilst burying an animal or burying a dead animal or cutting down a tree essentially invokes energies of decay, you see. And these energies of life are only called parasites or parasitic because their activities go counter to what enhances our lives. It doesn't mean these energies are evil. Mosquitoes are not evil just because they could give us malaria. And getting rid of mosquitoes, which are part and parcel of the universe, doesn't make us evil for doing so either. Astral energies of decay, it is what is being noted to be summoned by the presence of a diseased person's corpse. Places of worship. Number 2. Places of worship are one such places we wish to go next because it is very much related to energies of decay a lot. This is a controversial area because most people outside the walls of initiation will find it very hard to grasp, but not to any of you here, except for the religious people out there who will hear of this later. Those of the Temple of Shekinah, as well as those of the Temple of Sophia, will confirm that churches especially harbor a great deal of energies of reversal or decay because of the fact that most churches do not cultivate the tradition of energetically cleansing the worship spaces. Let me ask, why would you hold a funeral service on Saturday and then hold a weekly Sunday service right the next day without cleansing out the energies of death brought there the previous day? And because the importance of spatial cleansing of astral interferences is not an area of study in theology schools, the dilemma of astral parasite infestation is very much a reality in churches. A great deal of churches are haunted by astral parasites. During church service, people offload their emotional trauma during the praises and worship sessions, where intense emotional stimulation occur. During any of these collective worship sessions, astral trauma are offloaded with emotional backing, and these energies gravitate towards the corners of the room, awaiting astral parasites to feed on them. And when that happens, these parasites, they stay and they never leave unless steps are taken to evict them all. And unfortunately, you cannot break and lose astral parasite, just as you cannot break and lose or rebuke physical infestation. It is treated with the right method of eradication, of cleansing away the parasites. A whole variety of astral beings sleep in churches. This is because a church building really belongs to no one. It is a very public space and it is open to all. It is really not anyone's bedroom. It is not anyone's private office. Anyone can walk in at any time, and this essentially makes a church an open space for all kinds of spirits to take refuge there. Dead spirits accompany the corpse from the mortuary to be laid in state in the church. As the saying goes, the dead bury the dead. 3. We have an experience of shock. Sometimes it is a terrible news you have been given. At times, it is a very hurtful encounter, like walking in on your lover making love to another person. This will essentially generate enough pain and hate too magnetic to draw around you parasitic entities to feed upon your pain and despair. A sudden loss of a loved one, or a traumatic experience of a tragedy can also do the trick. Abuse, number 4. You see, abuse of all kinds attract astral parasites a great deal, especially around the one receiving the abuse. It is said that the one entertaining abuse is also doing the same thing the abuser is doing, because by entertaining abuse, you are also abusing yourself. So in this case, you as well as the abuser are both abusing your sanity. There are no victims in this universe, neither are they perpetrators. Not in that clear sense. Because the abuser only gets to abuse when he or she is being allowed. And you, the so-called victim, choose to stay victim because by calling yourself victim, you give validation to the abuse. With this, we are not even talking about violent act for the first time. Abuses leave scars, and the war wounds carry with them stories of trauma. We carry these trauma like badges of honor as if they are testament to our growth. No, they are not. They are only unresolved trauma and unhealed scars. Sexual abuse especially can really open up your aura so wide that so much astral parasite can congregate there to feed upon your victimhood, bitterness, pain, and the obsession for revenge. Domestic violence and all kinds of physical, mental, and emotional abuse result in the latching of astral parasites onto the aura of the said person. Number 5. Public transports, washrooms, and food vendors. Deep down within our psyche, we suspect this, but we can assure you it is deeper than that. Public transport, just like churches we spoke of earlier, have spirits taking residence in them. It is, however, the responsibility of the driver or the owner of the transport vehicle to not only cleanse these vehicles on the outside, but also to smudge and to release stagnant lower energies out of the vehicle spaces. Washrooms, whether public or private, has to be clean at all times. But since public washroom isn't desirable all the time in a tidy way, cleansing of one's aura should be a frequent routine. Many astral parasites squat in public washrooms a great deal. Public food joints or food vendors also attract parasitic astral energies, especially if the environment is not tidy. The aura or the energy body of choked gutters is extremely flooded with astral leeches and parasites of all kinds, and food vendors close by attract these astral leeches to feed, because all these leeches are programmed to do is feed off life-giving energies, thereby creating more parasitic energies. Make sure where you buy your food is physically tidy, smells good, and feels good. It is always better to eat home-cooked meal as it is preferred, but in this case, cleansing and caution should be your priority. Number 6, we have parasitic infested apartments and hotels. Those of you living in apartment spaces, some of you are already cohabitating with astral parasitic entities, feeding on your life energies, whilst all this while observing your most private moments. Do not take this lightly. Do make sure to do elemental cleansing of your rooms before moving into the apartment. Do not move into the apartment before attempting to cleanse the space. As for hotels and guest houses, these are not domestic spaces, so we would only emphasize on cleansing of the aura whilst using these spaces, because hotels and guest houses, they are not utilized for the long term. 7. Intentional psychic warfare. Astral parasites can be generated and sent through the ether to infect the target, so to say. There are many signs that will show that you are under the influence or under the attack of astral parasites, but we shall treat this when we come back from our break. When an adversary or an enemy wants to mess with your life through the use of astral parasites, your weaknesses is always the easiest avenue to exploit for astral parasite to get hold of your mind, body, and life energy. Your name or photograph, or even a personal belonging or body parts like hairs, nails, body fluids can be infected with astral parasites by feeding these personal items to spaces that have been infested with astral parasites like choked gutters, toilets, refuse dump, etc. So even the powers of the plant and animal kingdom can also be employed as parasitic in the hands of an adversary. 8. Mistakes in spiritual directions. Now this is a tricky one. Many people are clueless as to some of the effects of misinformed spiritual directions and rituals. Now, when you are doing a spiritual direction or a ritual which you know nothing about or very little about, or when you did not do the due diligence of knowing everything there is to know about a ritual or direction, what to do, when to do it, what exactly to do, where to do it, what time to do it, every ingredient or item involved, every statement to be made, how to make it, when to make it, and by which mannerisms, etc., should be followed in detail. Any misstep or mistake can potentially invite parasitic entities to break through the defenses of the spiritual direction and interfere with your work. Number 9, out-of-body experiences as well as the dreaming state. Whether consciously leaving the body or through the dream state, astral parasites can hitch a ride, monitoring and following your astral body whilst you return to your body upon waking up. An adversary can also use mirrors in your own bedroom to spy on you and transmit astral parasites into your vacant body whilst you sleep. This is why it is advisable to always make sure that your bed isn't directly facing any mirror in your room. If nothing can be done about this, we advise that you try to cover all mirrors facing directly your bed before going to bed. Number 10, negative thoughts. The hair we carry on our heads are like antennas, among many things, broadcasting our vibration into the cosmos in all directions. Negative thoughts generated by the minds of humans can cause damage to the environment far greater than our actions. Because before an action is ever taken, thoughts about the action is always preformed. Contrary to what scientists say about the depletion of the ozone layer, the combined energy of our negative thoughts globally is more hostile to the ozone layer than any harmful gas. Nature always has the power to offset any form of pollution, but the only thing capable of weakening Mother Nature's recycling abilities and transmutational strength is the effect of our poisonous thoughts of greed, selfishness, and the disregard of natural law. Our poisonous thoughts are like missiles hitting nature here and there, weakening her defenses, and out of love, she's still holding on to us as long as possible. Thoughts create vibrations because the brain, which is the powerhouse of our thinking capacity, is a powerful energy generator, only surpassed by the beating heart 50-1. But we are not here to talk about the electromagnetic resonance of the heart at the moment. We are talking about the vibrational state of negative thinking. We are our vibration. and our vibrations define our essence. Now, negative thoughts create vibrations which repel healthy energies that enhance our lives. And since nature abhors a vacuum, consequently, life-degrading astral parasite essentially filling the new vacancy created by negative thoughts as well as emotions. Thoughts about wishing someone dead, harming someone, envy, jealousy, wishing the next person to fail, thoughts of suicide, etc. attract astral parasitic entities that feed on our suffering, anger, envy, despair, to the point of taking certain actions that is equally chaotic enough to bring more lower vibrations for these parasites to feed more. When it becomes a vicious cycle of perpetual self-sabotage, then negative thoughts becomes a feeding ground for parasitic entities. Number 11, gatherings of emotional intensity. You see, sports gatherings, music concerts, political rallies, religious gatherings like churches, etc. attract astral parasites in their numbers. When sports enthusiasts or spectators express their joy or their sentiments, whether their preferred team is losing or winning, generate powerful emotions that astral parasites tend to feed on greatly. Whether a spectator is disappointed with the actions of an opposing team player, or even an unfair treatment from the officiating referee, right down to the possible revolt of the spectators, which may lead to violence and vandalism of property, may make astral parasites more than comfortable to feed on the energies of despair and anger. They latch onto the aura of the spectators and accompany them to their respective houses. Churches, where congregants worship, raising their hands in expression of the mixture of hope, bitterness, joy, anger, disappointment, and frustrations, all under the banner of worship, attract parasites to feed on the energies of frustration, anger, disappointment. Those who cry, kneel, and roll on the ground, etc. in the churches are all being fed upon, because contrary to what they are praying for, they are physically expressing the energy of hopelessness and frustration and despair. And this is done right after expressing gratitude to God. In this case, gratitude, being a very high energy, is conflicting with emotions of frustration and helplessness. And as a result, they cancel each other out. Now, those of the temple of Shekinah and Sophia, how do you feel when you visit these charismatic churches during the worship sessions? Every person who is very sensitive to energy shall confirm this. It is nauseating and it is sickening. And I wonder why churches cannot maintain a constant energy of gratitude and hope. I mean, why would you seek God's assistance with the emotions of frustration instead of hope? This is self-sabotage, and this attracts parasitic astral beings. Number 12, sexual relations. One of the greatest and most powerful circumstances that congregate astral parasites is through the release of sexual energy. Let all who have ears listen. Whether through marital sex or premarital sex, sexual acts attract astral parasites. You can argue this all you want, but all sexual acts, be it responsible or deviant, is extremely loud and irresistible, energetic broadcast that is done through the ethers. Sexual act generates such immense explosion of life energies that essentially manifest an intense bright red flash through the astral plane, which attracts attention of all within its vicinity, both negative and positive, all the more the reason to study the mysteries of the sacred sex or tantric yoga to protect your sexual energy from being fed upon by the wrong ones. Aside the fact that it is a must for all individuals to physically and astrally cleanse the room after sexual encounter, the very act or the space in which the sexual act is taking place needs to be shielded and for most part made inhospitable for astral parasites. In this case, only the astral spiritual guides who are lawfully required to be present to facilitate sexual arousal remain. I know some of what we are talking about will be news to those outside the temple of initiation, but at the very least, the totality of this wisdom concerning the sexual act shall be revealed to them in time. The sexual energy must go to the other party involved. In this case, example, the woman received a masculine sexual current from the man or the male counterpart, whilst the female counterpart in turn returns the sexual energy twice potent to the man. In this case, an infinity cycle of sexual energy is created through oscillation till climax. This act and the oscillation of this sexual energy that is not being wasted through climax takes the energy body of both the man and the woman into higher realms. If this doesn't happen, the sexual energy which has to circulate between the lover and the beloved is being shared among astral parasites, only to leave both of you sexually drained instead of being revitalized from the act. We are not here to teach openly tantric secrets to outsiders, but it is paramount to understand the weight of the energetic responsibility that is held within the sexual act. You cannot just get up and start having sex just with anyone anyhow. Religion somehow got it right about placing restrictions on sex, but religion then messed up everything by drawing the wrong conclusion that God dislikes sex before marriage, which is really beside the point. Sex is an entire knowledge system of its own, and if sex is carried out without, and the word is without, proper know-how, then the sexual space becomes a feasting ground for astral parasites. Those women who have had multiple partners and haven't undergone any form of purification of sexual ties have around their pubic areas certain energy pockets that harbor astral parasites, and when any man engage in sexual act with these women, these parasites are transferred into the sexual chakras or the energy centers called the swadhisthana or the navel chakra, which governs sexuality, productivity, creativity, and a doorway into the life force center in the solar plexus energy center. It gets more interesting when the male partner uses his tongue to play and stimulate the vaginal portal. In such cases where the woman has astral parasite lodged below the pubic areas, the tongue of the man that is stimulating the woman below carries a great deal of astral parasite or astral parasitic eggs laid by astral parasite in his mouth. Then he swallows down his throat, and then these parasites lodge into the Vishuddhi or the throat energy center, only to feed upon the self-image of the man. Now, this only happens to women who have not cleansed out the parasitic energies away from their aura. And it also happens to women who have had their vaginal portal invaded by multiple men. This is not so with virgins or women who have really taken into account the kind of people they share their body with, who are very particular and very careful with who they share their body with. You don't usually have these issues with them. The sexual technique called cunnilingus in itself does not attract sexual astral parasites. Pay attention. It's rather through cunnilingus done on an uncleansed female partner, married or otherwise. We say this because many so-called spiritual experts feel that cunnilingus in itself is degrading to the essence of men. It is not always the case, but that will take us of course. Bedrooms where sexual acts occur should periodically be cleansed of all lurking astral parasites that hide in the rooms only to come out to feed whenever the action is about to go down. You know what I mean? Those of the Pleiadian Order of the Seven Sisters, those of the Temple of the Seven Sisters, I believe you already know about all this. Sexual self-stimulation, in other words called masturbation, is also, as a sexual act, inviting to astral parasites. This sexual act tremendously forms a feasting ground for astral parasites. The spilling of sexual fluids irresponsibly and unintelligently will reduce one's energetic integrity to such low levels that very little or nothing can be ignited for purpose and productive outcomes. Much cannot be revealed about this here because of censorship hovering about privileged information, only taught behind the walls of initiation. We will put a pin on that a little bit, but all forms of sexual content is a form of invitation for participation. You are not just watching any sexual content. You are literally participating in it. Television screens, cell phone screens, computer screens are all portals of energetic transactions. We all know that money is power. Money is power. And when you pay for internet data with money, which is power, to unlock a sexual content screen or a screen of sexual content, you have bought your way into a global World Wide Web cinema where you become part and parcel of the sexual entertainment. Astral parasites move frequently through the screens of sexual content into the very bedroom or the living room of the one viewing the sexual content. And on a quantum level, you know that time and space can fold up through wormholes where astral beings move across long distances in seconds, thereby bridging or bringing the sexual content along with all the cast, the actors, the actresses, into the very room and the space of the one viewing the sexual content. This, you have to take your time to wrap your head around it because it is quite spooky how entities can move through screens, be it computer or phone or television, into the very space of the one viewing it. Those type of astral leeches gained through such sexual participation are quite formidable to get rid of because they tend to dwell within spaces one would never suspect, like your mobile phone, using to subscribe such sexual content. Even your computers can harbor sexual astral parasites.